Okay, let's go over one of the mysteries that I talked about in the prior video on top recommendation here, the Tamron 15 to 30 2.8. What is the reason why it is not a 2.8? Well, marketing. Cost. Optical design. Tamron is guilty of this, Sigma is guilty of it, even Nikon is guilty of it, Tokina is definitely guilty of it. If you want to take a look at both of these, well, they are different focal ranges. This is a 14 to 24, this is a 15-30. However, technically it is a 15.8 to 30. But, hold on a second here. Here we go. You can see that the front element on the Nikkor 14 to 24 here is substantially larger. Also, there are more glass elements in the Tamron 15 to 30. Now, depending whether it's ED glass or has a better light transmission, it doesn't matter. It's still 18L. It's got a lot more elements than the 14 to 24 has. Larger front element. This is not a 2.8. It is an f3.2. Industry manufacturers, what they do is they round down. Now, here's the question you have to ask yourself, and this is what Tamron and Nikon does this sometimes. Oh, this is a real f2.8. What they know is that would you buy this lens if it were marketed as, oh, introducing the new Tamron 15.8 millimeter to 30 f3.2? Probably not. Just as in purchasing some things are rounded up when it comes to lenses from Tamron, Sigma, and Tokina especially. But Nikon and Canon are guilty of this in some regards and some lenses. What they do is they round down. What perplexed me was the ignorance of the world's largest website that does camera and lens reviews. When they actually reviewed this Tamron 15 to 30, they were perplexed why they actually had to change the field of view, for one, to match the Tamron. They had to change it to 16 millimeters on the Nikon. Now the Nikon really is a 14 to 24 on the focal, and the reason for that is that this isn't a 15. This isn't a 15 to 30. It is a 15.8. So they were perplexed by that, which kind of amazed me. I mean, I know the reason why. They didn't want to market this as a 15.8. or a 16 to 30, they wanted to market it as they rounded down to 15. Since it included part of the 15 focal range spectrum, they rounded down to 15. I have to forgive them for that. It's not a fault of the lens. This lens still rates a 9.5 out of 10 by me. Tamron is guilty of it. The Tamron's lens is absolutely an abysmal failure. The wide zoom, not the 11 to 16, but the other, excuse me, I would say the Tokina, not the Tokina 11 to 16, but the other Tokina wide zoom, the unmentionable horror that it was that I had for a short period of time, and tested another lens and found out they're all absolutely horrible. But yeah, this website was perplexed by that. They were also perplexed, especially so, that at every aperture f-stop, and comparing it to the Nikon 14 to 24, that it was a half a stop or more brighter on the Nikkor than on the Tamron. Number one, the Tamron has a lot more elements. Okay, well that's one. Every lens element, no matter how perfect, glass is glass is glass is glass. Okay, the best glass spit up by NASA, Zeiss, and Leica is still glass. It has dielectric capacitance, and it drops down light transmission no matter how well it's coated. But regardless of that fact, the nature of the beast is that this is not an f2.8. It's an f3.2. It's actually a little higher than an f3.2, but they rounded down to 2.8. But what amazed me is that this largest website that does all these camera lens reviews had no idea. I mean, didn't they see the front element on the front of this Tamron 15 to 30? Did they not know? There's nothing close at the focal range that would make this an f2.8. It's just not. But that's not an issue, because I'm pragmatic and realistic, and Tamron didn't want to market it that way, and that's fine. Because of its countless other incredible attributes, this is still an absolute hardcore top recommendation lens. And my God, I mean, it took me a long time. I don't care how low budget these videos are, and they're as low as they get. I still have to rate it a 9.5 out of 10. Took 3 testing and 1 bad example to start off with. It was probably dropped in shipping, but it works perfectly on FX and DX. But the point of this is that the huge secret that Takina and Sigma and Tamron won't tell you it's not the case all the way across the board, is that some of their lenses are not what they're marked. And that's just the way it is. And it's marketing. And if you told someone, well, we got this new lens that's going to be $1,200 and it's an f3.2. F3.2, people are glass speed sluts. It's if someone came out with an F negative, it's ridiculous. Well, I don't care if the depth of field is like 1 millimeter, and if someone could come out with like a 30 to 300, f 1.105, people are ridiculous. Tamron, Takina, and Sigma, they all know this, and that's why this lens is marked an f2.8, even though it's not. It's an f3.2. This other website and another website confirms. It's like they can figure out why it's a half a stop darker. Big deal, Throw in a half a stop of exposure compensation. Nothing wrong with that. This lens is still exquisite. Anyway, so this is something you'll run into. It doesn't occur across the board, but when it comes to zooms, it's prevalent in wide zooms and it's prevalent in telephoto zooms. And Tamron is guilty of it, and so is Sigma, and so is Takina. And Nikon rarely is guilty of this. They are in a few instances. I won't mention those examples. They're a lot closer, but this one actually is a significant little stretch. Even though it's a half a stop, it's still the case. But Tamron can't market this lens that way. They wanted to give this lens a run for its money, but due to the nature of optics, due to the nature of marketing, I still can't fault Tamron for that. I can't, because this lens smokes the fanny of the 14 to 24. It beats it in coma. It beats it in vignetting. It beats it. It just flat out flogs it. Corner sharpness, center sharpness at 15. It was 15.8. At 15.8, i.e., 15, the corner sharpness and center sharpness are just—they're incredible. There's no vignetting on this lens all the way open, zoomed all the way out to 15, which is really 15.8. Anyway, so that's, I was kind of going on again about this lens recommendation, the Tamron 15 to 30. Works perfect FX or DX, but that's the secret, the dirty secret that Nikon and, not Nikon, excuse me, that Tamron, Takina, and Sigma don't want you to know about, but it's basically almost entirely prevalent within wide zooms like this, or in telephoto zooms. Not primes, but in telephotos, because they fudge the numbers. Especially, Nikon is guilty, especially not on fudging the f-stops, but Nikon's guilty on their telephotos on fudging the actual focal range as far as the far end. Especially, one example is the Nikon 28 to 300 and the 18 to 200, which is a DX lens. Those suckers are not 18 to 200s, and that other lens is not a 28 to 300. They're just not. But marketing just makes it look beautiful and exquisite. It's just like some numbers look better. It's like people that photograph watches. The hands have to be in certain locations because it's aesthetically pleasing to see that. It's like, what? It's like, yeah, there's actually a psychology that revolves around this, and the same thing is true to appealing to lens purchasers. Nikon and everybody knows this, and Tamron knew it. But that's no reason to fault this lens, because I know about optics and I know about lens designs. And here's the big secret. I should have mentioned this at the beginning of this video, because I think a million miles a second. Okay, this is what I should have said at the beginning of this video. But I think 1,000 things at once, and that's just the way my crazy ass brain works. To make this lens, to give this lens a run for its money with the 14 to 24 here, to make this an actual 2.8 instead of a 3.2, which is what this is. This is an f3.2. This lens would not be $1,200. It would be a lot more. And then people would be like, why would I buy that Tamron instead of this lens, Because this lens is now $1,500 or $1,600, and this lens is just a few $100s more. Because that front element would have to be a lot bigger, and that means a lot more money! 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 Cost. Expenditure. When it comes to optics, here's the thing. It's like, well, it costs this much money to make a front element this size. And you make it a little bit larger, it costs about that much more. And if you make a front element that's a yay bit bigger, it costs, well, a little bit yay bit more. But once you reach a certain limit and you change the front element from this to that, then the cost goes from this to... It's the same thing like on optical flats. A buddy of mine builds an amazing invention, and the optical flats that he uses, they're 100 millimeters. You know, they're expensive. But if you want to get up in size, the size just a little bit larger, the price goes from this to... And that is why Tamron had to do that. And they marked this at 2.8. For it to really be a 2.8, that front element had to be a honking bit bigger. The design would have to be different, optically speaking. But the price, just importantly, would have to be a lot higher. So I'm happy living with this as an f3.2, and I still give it a rating of 9.5 out of 10. Because it wouldn't be a $1,200 lens anymore. So that's the little dirty secret about this lens and other ones like it. So you heard it here first, and that's the way it is. Like it or lump it, deal with it. It's still an excellent lens. It's exquisite. And it takes a lot for me to say that. Thanks for watching.